Hi, it's Andréa Albright. Welcome to Star Authority TV, where you learn the secrets to amp up your star power and attract the authority branding that you deserve. Today's special guest is a PR extraordinaire and a global connector. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, Andrea, how are you?
So happy to have you here. Now, we are going to go deep into PR and building relationships and how you really use your secret sauce to connect people, to build authority and amp up their star power. So we're going to go deep into all of these questions. First, why don't you tell the viewer who you are and what you're up to?
Sure, I'm really excited to be here. Since you and I first talked, I'm like, oh, maybe you and I were separated at birth in some weird way. So we think similarly about life and relationships and business and people, and so I'm really excited for this talk to see where it'll go. But in terms of what my business does, it's a very simple formula that I've seen time and time again from global successful entrepreneurs, where you see a problem, you create solution to problem solved, global successful company. So that's all my firm BrEpic has done in the PR space. I was a journalist for 20 years and created my entire business model based on how PR firms annoyed me for 20 years. So it's saw a problem, created solution to it, solved it, successful company.
There you go. I love the simplicity of the way that you are describing it.
Yep.
Why do you think so many businesses struggle to reach the global success that you've been able to achieve?
So, just as background, and we talked about it briefly, I'm a global connector. A good part of my day is talking to, to quantify it, between 5 and 10 folks that are usually, not always, but usually running high 6-figure to 10-figure businesses around the globe. And so they'll say something randomly, and I'll be like, oh, I know someone in Australia that thinks like that, and then I'll just connect them. And then a week later, they'll be like, how did you know how to do that? I go, I don't know. I just know how to do it. I know how to connect people's brains at a very high level, and then those people either become business partners, or they become, clients, or they just become friends, and just builds on their network. So from talking to people like that all the time, Monday through Friday, I found the really successful ones, they fit into a couple buckets. One, they pretty much do what they like to do and what they're good at, and that's all I do all day. I'm constantly in my zone of genius superpower. There's no real deviation from that. But the entrepreneurs that struggle, they try to be everything for everyone. And my company, why it's successful, is it's one genius, super high-level global thing for one certain type of person. It's the opposite of trying to be everything for everyone. It's one thing for a certain type of people. And I found that those type of people, who are people with a visionary abundance mindset, investment mindset, they're investing and pivoting like crazy right now since COVID. There's no worry about cost or scarcity. It's just entrepreneur life. They're just figuring things out, creating new technologies, and those people are investing heavily, and those are really the only people I work with. So, and then those people just introduce me to more people like that, and it just grows and grows and grows. So like you said, it's simplifying everything.
Amazing. Well, I love the specificity of who you can serve and the value that you provide.
Yep.
And would you agree that this is part of the key to becoming the authority in your space, to becoming best at what you do?
Yep. So that's certainly one of the most important things. I think the number one, by far most important thing, again, it's very simple, is mindset. So if you have the right abundance, visionary investment mindset, it's like a magnet. It attracts people like that. It's like sending out radio frequencies or doing interviews like this. The people that listen to this, I'm guessing most of the people in your audience are very high-level thinkers. They are very attracted to people that think like that. The ones that don't think like that, they'll never reach out. But that's fine, because I know who my tribe is. I know who my audience is. So with that right mindset, and then focusing on a very specific thing that you really like to do and that you're really good at, it eliminates all noise, it eliminates all distractions and all nonsense, and it focuses on just building that awesome thing and making it bigger and better every single day.
Fantastic. Well, we are going to go into your secrets to generating PR and buzz and getting attention. And I use this term, star authority, because you have to engage an audience with star power and charisma and
Absolutely.
magnetism, but you also need to have the authority to be seen as someone to listen to. And it's not just being an influencer or an entertainer, because when you're an authority, you are actually changing people's lives.
That's correct.
So why don't you share some of your secrets to attracting PR as a star authority?
Right. So I love that question. So my clients, the people in my network, again, very high-level thinkers, whether they're gajillionaires or whether they're flat broke, but they have the right mindset. They just want results. They want to work with someone who's going to get them results. So in terms of what my company does, the problem that I saw for 20 years as a journalist was hundreds of times a day I'd receive these useless press releases from people I didn't know. So that was the problem. The solution to that problem is my firm creates actual stories that are similar to what I did as a journalist. It becomes a link on the client's website under news or blogs, so it would look like a story that you see in the LA Times or the New York Times or Chicago Tribune or Toronto Sun. And I take that link and pitch it to media locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. If media is interested, put them in touch with the client. That's literally all my company does. It's on my website. There are no secrets. It's like, this is what it does. If you want to do it, great. If you don't, that's fine. So the people that do want to do it, they are also authorities in their zone of genius, meaning they like to do what they're really good at and what they like to do. They've built companies, successful companies, by doing exactly that, and they hire people like me and firms like mine who are also geniuses at the one or two things that they like to do and what they're good at. And so that's the key, is that you just work with people like that who understand the value of investing. They know you are authority because you deliver big results for all these certain types of awesome people. And then those people introduce you to more people like that. So again, I will keep saying the word simple over and over and over, but that's all it is. It's total simplicity at the simplest level.
Fantastic. Well, you have definitely dialed it in. And even the topic of simplicity is one which you and I could vibe on.
Oh my God, we could talk about that all day, all day. I mean, your business is successful because you know what you're good at, you know what your company's good at, and you know the type of clients that you want to serve. So that's it.
Yes.
Right.
And it allows you to really focus on excellence, because instead of being a buffet for all the people to serve at a tiny superficial level, you're able to go really deep with the people who you are meant to serve.
That's correct. So what's interesting is when you work with people like that, and I'm guessing you see this all the time, I get texts from my clients. They're like, oh my God, it's so awesome to watch you in your zone of genius. Or like, it's so cool to see the results I'm getting because you're doing what, like, they're my clients telling me that. And so what I found is really successful people and folks with the right mindset, they're really happy to be working with experts in whatever given field because they don't know how to do it. They're not good at it. So that's why they retain services from people like me and firms like mine that can actually deliver exceptional results. So I found that people with that mindset are usually extremely happy about life because they're focused on what they're good at and what they like to do, and then they work with people who are the same way, and it just creates this incredible amount of abundance and joy.
You're saying so many of the best words in my vocabulary that I love. Abundance.
That's why you and I are friends.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Very simple. There's that word again, simple. So why do you think so many people want to make it complex? What do you think that is about?
So I'm like the outlier of outliers. And I'm giving you that background because I am not driven by revenue. I'm not driven by having 10xing the employee count, 10xing the types of technology in my company. My 10xing in life is two things. One, network on a global level, because that creates endless opportunities for your network and yourself. And then two, 10xing experiences with my family, because when you have a good family life, you have a good life. So again, everything besides that goes away. So I think, again, based on my experience of talking to some of the smartest people on earth, most successful people, folks are, they might be focused on the wrong things, meaning like revenue, as opposed to like things that actually really matter. And that can become very distracting And when you're not focused, like a lot of entrepreneurs have like high quick start where they're like boom, 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 but they don't have follow through. So that's why they hire a bunch of people. I'm one of the rare entrepreneurs that has high quick start and high follow through, so I can actually follow through on my own quick start. So I have found from talking to so many entrepreneurs that a lot of them are just kind of all over the place, and they really have never kind of focused in on a couple really good things that they're good at and like to do.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's some kind of an ego attachment.
The ego's that's it.
Yeah.
That's revenue is a term driven by ego. So I say that all the time, but again, you finished my sentence. All that matters is really profit is what, I talk to people running $5-10 million companies, revenue companies, and I'm like, so what's your profit? And then, tumbleweed, fictionally, fake tumbleweed rolls across. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's just a term driven by ego. So here's the other interesting thing, is that I work with a lot of either female entrepreneurs or female solopreneurs. They don't think with revenue first. They think more like, more like I do in terms of network, and definitely in the family first thing. So that's been an interesting organic thing that's happened. Is I would say 40 to 50% of my clients are women, solopreneurs or women-led companies, because I don't know if it's more of my, I embrace more of my feminine energy or whatever it is, but it's that's the vibe that it gives off. So that's actually been great because it's the same type of priorities that I have.
Well, and I know from firsthand experience with you, you are really deep about that meaningful connection.
Absolutely.
And, how can you connect someone to somewhere? We're all so busy, but yet that connection, a meaningful connection, brings so much value to your life.
It's the most important thing.
To have that awareness at a higher than normal level. It's like an emotional connection level to build long-term relationships.
So I'm glad you said that, because I didn't necessarily know that was my number one superpower. And in fact, I wrote a book, and writing the book was, during that process, I realized, wait a minute, my company's not a PR firm. Really what it is this giant incubator of geniuses around the world, and we're just constantly introducing each other for mutual gain. And the byproduct is I'm constantly getting intros to companies around the world that want to hire my firm. So there's no funnels or sales. I haven't done any outbound selling anything in 2+ years, and my company's 3.5 years old. So what I found is, and if you want to quantify things, is minimum I do 10 intros on a global level every single day. Minimum. Actively do it. Because I can just talk to people like you all day, and I'll be like, oh, I know someone that thinks like you. And then I get 3 or 4 every single day. So that there's no need for funnels or anything like that. It's just creating value for people, and then they create value for you.
Again, that's simplicity and the brilliance. You're able to focus on what you can really do best.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about PR. So why is it important to have PR as part of your authority branding in today's world?
I love the word authority here. I'll dovetail that with the number one reason folks hire my firm is not to grow business right away, although anecdotally that does happen. It's by far a bigger reason is to create both short-term and especially long-term validity and credibility. If you want to call that authority, that's fine as well. In fact, I actually like adding that. So validity and credibility, because when you are in these mainstream media outlets or on podcasts, those links don't go away. And so not only does that create validity and credibility short-term, but because the links don't go away, people might be looking you up 5-10 years from now, and here you on a podcast 5-10 years ago, and then they reach out. So it's the people that I work with on a global level, they understand that at a very high level, meaning they know they have to market themselves. They know they need to be in the news. They know that's important. They know it's good to build their brand, to build their identity, to help their messaging. Me personally, I'm in media constantly because of my book, and it's really helped me refine my message, think about what my company really is, find my tribe, and it's and that helps when I'm not on camera per se, where I'm just talking to someone. And so there's endless positive things that come from being in the media. And here's a really interesting thing that I think you personally might appreciate is that in terms of the power of these types of interviews, whether it's TV or podcasts or those kind of things, it's in the process of not fully replacing regular mainstream media, but it's well on its way. And there are three big reasons for that. And I'll spare you from having to guess it, because I've had one person guess all three right in like a year and a half of asking this. But there's three really interesting reasons. One, and you're an perfect example of this, the host is a visionary entrepreneur as opposed to a journalist. So we can have real conversations about entrepreneurship that a journalist who hasn't been an entrepreneur they just don't understand, which is fine. Two, you can do a deep dive. This interview is 30 minutes-ish, maybe a little longer. And at the 30-minute mark is when you really you really get into a good flow and you really get to know somebody. So it's not a drive-by interview. And three, the most important thing is the audience is not necessarily the largest audience, but it's the most quality in that audience. It's the people that they like you. They want to listen to you. And then they know that you're going to bring good guests who provide valuable content for them. So it's a much more, I hate the term funneled, but it's a good type of tribe for usually the guest of the shows as well.
That was really fantastic. I've never thought about those.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm learning so much from you about this. And I really like what you said at the very beginning about the host having the perspective
it's the host
of the audience as well. Right. So unlike a journalist who's hired and then that's all they're doing is interviewing people, the host has actually lived the experience.
They get
through it.
Right. So I'm an entrepreneur that happens to be a journalist. As opposed to a journalist who's a journalist. So it's like saying an entrepreneur who happens to be a lawyer as opposed to a lawyer who's a lawyer. And there's a very big difference there. I mean, I can't even tell you what a big difference there is there. But so here's the fourth, I guess, third and a half thing that's happening with podcasts. It's not fully fourth. But so if you haven't interviewed Steve Sims, I would strongly recommend you reaching out to him, and you could cross-pollinate with your podcast. So Steve's a very high level. He's a visionary wackadoo at the wackadooiest. But anyway, he told me something brilliant, that let's say you do a podcast 5 years ago, or you do it now, and there's 3 listeners. 5 years from now, that host interviews Barack Obama, and then all of a sudden people start subscribing to that podcast, and then all those podcasts from 5 years ago, they start listening to them, and voila, they start listening to this. So that's the next evolution of how podcasts are transforming media, because it might not be popular now, but years from now it will be, and then people will listen.
Amazing. Well,
it's crazy, man. Well, that's the thing. So I learned that by doing interviews. I learned all 3 of those things, 3.5 things, by doing interviews. So that's what I mean. It helps your brain evolve, being the guest and the host. Right.
Well, this is what's so exciting about being on either side of the interview spectrum is that you are deep into your industry, your evolution as a leader, as a thought leader, and you want to be on the cutting edge of the conversation of whatever industry you are in. And
that's been the most surprising, best thing. My company's a little over 3.5 years, and I was a journalist for 20 years. So that's been the most interesting dynamic on how media has changed. For what I've seen and how my clients have seen it, is that the power of podcasts. These are the types of things that, again, are not fully replacing mainstream media, but they are super important and potentially, eventually, more important than being in Forbes or, in Inc. or Entrepreneur Magazine. It's just, again, because of those 3.5 reasons I said before.
Well, this is really the evolution of media, and everything you're explaining. It's about, just like your premise of the deeper connections, the deeper relationships. People need to have a trusted relationship with who they're getting information from, because in today's world of propaganda and ulterior motives in a lot of the media, we are losing trust with journalism in general.
That's 100% true. And to dovetail that, people ask me, I get this question once a day. They're like, so what do you think about media now? Is it falling apart? Is it spiraling? I go, well, actually, media it's never been more exciting, because of traditional media, again, is evolving. I love that term you just used. evolving into media like this, where it's actually, in a lot of ways, not all, but in a lot, it's better because you can really find your audience where you don't have to have millions of followers. You can 1,000. You can have 1,000 really good followers, and that's all that. 100 good followers would be fine. If those are the right types of people, that's all that really matters.
And it really is about the diversity of the human experience.
Yes.
And, back in the day, there were maybe 3 networks and
Right.
no cable television. And so all of humanity was really bunched into these smaller groups.
Correct.
But social media, the internet, we are now connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by digital light.
Yes.
And that means you can find your tribe,
right.
even amongst, people from around the world that you would never know. Like our relationship is a perfect example.
It's 100%.
We were connected through our network, and now here we are, like-minded, joining our voices together to go deeper into a conversation. And that's really what the media is replacing. It's the level of intimacy and the depth of conversation that you can go into in every particular niche and nuance.
I'd give you a hug if I was there, because that was really well said. And in terms of a business perspective, like my firm's newest client is based in Cape Town, and because of COVID, they had plans of taking over the world, going global. It's a big speaking company. They're really interesting. It's called Missing Link. But so because of COVID, instead of like just waiting on things, they just did it. They're like, okay, in-person speaking, that's going to be a problem for a while. So let's expand and create a global platform. So again, investment abundance mindset people, that's what they're doing right now on a massive level. And it's very exciting because those are the companies and those are the people that are going to create things that hire people, that employ people, that create jobs, that create wealth for everyone. And so, that's what happens whenever there's a depression or a crisis. It's entrepreneurs that lead people out of it, especially the ones who are pivoting and investing like crazy right now.
Well, I could give you a hug after what you just said.
Well, it's true.
We are definitely in alignment. And
right.
This is actually very interesting. I didn't think we would go here in this conversation, but you keep saying a word, investing. And that is definitely a word that I have discovered with the clients who are attracted to my message. They all have this one particular trait in common, and that is they are investors.
They invest.
And they have the investing mindset.
Okay.
So what does that mean to you, Justin?
It means everything to me. So here's the favorite chapter of my book. Can you see it? There it is. That's it. So not only is that my favorite chapter, but the people who have read it, who are entrepreneurs, they're like, that's the number one thing. Someone asked me, what do you cost or charge within the first 5 or 10 minutes? It's an automatic bong, because I know that they will, not only will they be bad clients because they think of things in a transactional way as opposed to a relationship way. So they're toxic, but usually people like that hang out with other people like that. So if they do make a referral, it would be to another toxic person. So the people that, again, you probably hear the same thing. The people I work with ask me, what does an investment with you look like? And so that's been the number one thing that people who have read my book and me personally have gotten from it, is that like, just work with people who look at things as investments, because that word choice, investment versus cost, will tell you everything you want to know about somebody with 2 words. That's it. So I'm guessing you only work with those type of people too.
Yes, exactly. And whenever people ask about what's the secret to your success, it always comes down to investment. Investing in myself, investing in my platform, investing in my brand, investing in my
Yes. Yep.
Always the conversation around investing.
So I'm in a lot of the two big ones that I'm in are Strategic Coach, so that's an international entrepreneurial organization, and then I'm in Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and those are both significant investments. And people are like, well, aren't you worried about the cost on a annual rate for those? I go, absolutely not. I go, that's some of the best investing I could ever make. I mean, investing in my book, that was a very big investment, but that's the number one investment I've ever made. And so for people who do a book the right way, work with the right people, get the right message out there, and then do media like this, it's the best investment you can ever make, because it never stops authority. It never stops making you an authority figure. It never stops leading to new connections. It never stops leading to new media opportunities. It just keeps growing and growing. And again, doing it the right way, not just like, oh, I'm going to write a book. Like having a really good person write the foreword, working with a great person like you and your team. Like that's the key. But it's an investment. If you look at it as a cost, then whatever. It's an investment in yourself, in your brand, in your brain, in your market, all that stuff. And again, like if you work with people who think of things as investments, they're always the happiest people, because they invest in themselves and in their brands, and it provides joy for them.
Beautiful. Well, it's a long-term strategy. It's the long-term game.
Yes.
And it completely separates, like you said, the transactional short-term fix.
That's correct.
And what you mentioned about the book, let's go into that, because as a publisher myself and CEO of Beverly Hills Publishing, I work with people to get their books and also to promote and market their book. And I think there's a lot of people who are confused that they think, oh, if I just write a book and throw it out there, that people are going to come. So can you tell us a little bit about the importance of publicity and marketing and drawing attention to your book?
Yes, I will be happy to do that. So just as a timeline, I don't usually like to date conversations like this, but I think in this case it's important. So my book launched May 7th. I started doing media for it in late January when the website for it was ready. My book's called Epic Business, by the way, in case anyone wants to get it. But and it's mid-September now. I'm still doing minimum between 3 and 5 media interviews for it every week. Most of them on podcasts, because podcasts, again, they're the right tribe. So here's the constant common mistake that I hear, and I'm guessing that you hear this all the time, is like the launch of the book. That's great, but that is only the very, 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 very beginning. It is a long-term, long play, long process. And a trick that I learned from someone in Entrepreneurs Organization, actually, he told me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, when you launch the book, after you launch it, to block off at least 1 hour every single day for at least a month just to work on book activities, whether it's promoting something on social media or scheduling media interviews or checking folks wrote reviews on Amazon, or if you're asking people to write reviews on Amazon, because the launch is just the launch. Like that's just like if you sell a lot of copies, that's great, but really the real value is getting in these type of media opportunities and then promoting it when someone writes a great review, or it leads to speaking opportunities. And that could happen, again, it's been June, July, it's been 4 months since my book launched, and it'll never stop growing. It'll just keep building and building. That's what happens. So dedicate the time after the launch. Before the launch, during launch, great. After the launch, that's the most important time.
Fantastic. Well, that's definitely the approach that we use at Beverly Hills Publishing, because the book is the beginning. It's the beginning of the relationship, and it's what opens up the opportunities for people to interview you, because that's the newsworthy event is the book.
That's the news bag, right?
Is why people want to interview you. And if you don't understand that as the author, the word for authority comes from...
Oh my God, I didn't even realize that. Oh my God, that makes...
Boom!
I did not know that.
Your mind is just like, boom! Yes.
I swear I did not. So, thank you. I usually don't write anything down, but I'm writing that down, because that's it. It makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense, right? So when you become an author, you are the authority of that subject. And that's why interviews and media, publicity, speaking, but you have to also actively promote yourself and get the message out there.
Yes.
And it's like a snowball effect where people see, oh, Justin's doing all these interviews. Well, I have to have him on my show. He must be newsworthy.
That's right. So I was looking up the term entrepreneur, which I think it's a French word.
It is a French word. Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. Oui, je parle français un peu, mais pas de beaucoup. So it's a person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks to do so. I love that. That's a very simple, and that's what it is. It's a risk, but it always pays off. Always. And if it doesn't, then you learn from it, and then it'll pay off from the thing that you learned from it not paying off. So
that's fantastic. Well, there's a lot of the definitions of entrepreneur. My favorite is creating something from nothing.
We might have been separated at birth. Because that's what it is.
It is.
And speaking of that, I am convinced that if you can because I created a global company in 3 years. I mean, if you can do that, I'm pretty much convinced you can do anything. There's nothing, based on my experience, again, talking to people that have created far more successful businesses than I have. If you can do that from nothing, when everyone tells you no, like to get my first 5 clients, I reached out to 5,000 people. So 999 rejections for every new client. So if you can do that and handle that, then you kind of get to a point where I'm at, where like you're just enjoying the success, you keep building on it, you're having fun doing what you like to do and what you're good at, you're working with all these great people. I mean, you're doing the same thing I'm doing. But to start that from nothing, it's almost miraculous. And most people they just can't do it, which is fine. That's why they're working regular jobs, which the world needs more of that than entrepreneurs. But if you can do that from nothing, you can basically do anything, I'm convinced.
Amazing. We were separated at birth because I believe entrepreneurship is the greatest path to personal development and self-awareness. You will learn more about yourself as an entrepreneur than any spiritual retreat or any other experience in life. And because you have no one to blame, you have no one to complain about. You are the boss. So you're complaining about yourself. And that level of, I say, radical responsibility and complete ownership of the outcome, that will take you on the greatest path of self-awareness than any other path, if you're up for it.
If you can handle that. So if you cannot handle overwhelming rejection, likely depression at some point, horrible up and down anxiety, that's just the facts. This is not all sunshine and rainbows. If you can't handle that, then I would not recommend doing this. But if you have that fortitude to be able to handle that, then you come out on the other side like you and I are, that we're just creating these awesome businesses. And again, there's no limit to it. It just keeps growing. And then the other cool thing is, so my sons are 7 and 6. My 7-year-old, he's already started his first business. He's an entrepreneur.
Amazing.
I don't want to make sure my wife doesn't hear this, so I was walking him to school a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I'm so bored with school." I go, "Well, of course you're bored, because education as a whole is not. There's no entrepreneurs teaching you anything in that. It's cookie cutter, like." Do this, do this, do this. In fact, it's the anti-entrepreneurial approach. And so I'm like, just learn what you need to learn. You'll find something you probably like to do. It's important to have that, but then I'll introduce you to people that are like thinking in the world in a much different way. Because that's how I can already tell that's how he thinks. And so most kids, no one ever tells them that. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't learn. I didn't know what an LLC was when I had this company, when I started this. I didn't know what LLC was. I didn't know you had to pay taxes 4 times a year. I didn't know what a W-9 was, like none of that. So it's like, and education as a whole is definitely changing right now. They're making, this whole situation with COVID is making everyone think more entrepreneurial, which is great. And then education is evolving just like everything else is, but at a higher level, because people are saying you have to think entrepreneurial to get stuff done.
Yes. Well, we could have an entire show just about the education system and the lack of entrepreneurial education. I didn't even know the word entrepreneur until after I was one.
Right. So I grew up in a pretty, you're right. It wasn't even, I grew up in a fairly affluent area in the North Shore of Chicago. Not one time, not once was the word entrepreneur ever said during my entire childhood. I got a full academic scholarship to college. I'm not, I'm pretty brain smart. Not one time was the word entrepreneur ever said to me. And it's unbelievable. Like, how could you, it's like almost actively trying to make people not entrepreneurs. And so hopefully that changes. I know it is in some capacity, and hopefully that just continues to evolve.
Well, this absolutely is part of our giving back. I've always made a promise that once I had reached a level of entrepreneurship, that I was going to help every person out there who is a visionary, is an entrepreneur, because like you said, we are less than 10% of the population.
Oh, less than 5.
Oh, really?
The good ones. Yeah, the good one. Hold on.
Okay, well, and we're the ones who solve the problems, who create the jobs, and who evolve and innovate humanity. Oh, here's another chapter.
There you go. Because people like you want to share this knowledge with people. They want to mentor. They want people to have this life. They want to, like, people are like, how did you do this? That's why I wrote the book. They're like, how did you build this company? I'm like, well, this is how I did it. I'm like, I was a journalist, not making a lot of money, working terrible hours. I'm like, I didn't know what an LLC even stood for. And so, like, this is how I did it. So and then the higher up entrepreneurs go, the more they actually help, the more they give back. And it's like this whole weird term about capitalism being bad and entrepreneurs being a bad word. I'm like, it's the best thing ever. That's what makes America awesome, because there are so many entrepreneurs. And so that is just going to continue to grow and grow and grow.
This is so much deeper than I thought we were going to get into, because our spirit, our beliefs, absolutely, we are aligned with this. And I have discovered that the more successful you are, the more you have to give, the more you want to help others. And this is from conscious capitalism. And there are more and more
yes.
out there
Good.
speaking of that.
Yes, that was a better way of saying it.
Yes. Well, this is just the beginning of our conversations. It went by so fast, and I even had a whole round of questions I was going to ask you about your personal likes and dislikes. But we got to this amazing conversation about entrepreneurship, giving back, creating your own authority brand.
Right. Yep.
And Justin, tell us, where can we find your book? Where can we contact you and follow and learn more? Here's
the cover, by the way. So Chris Voss, who wrote we talked about having someone good write the foreword. So Chris Voss wrote one of the top business books in the last 20 years, Never Split the Difference. So he did the foreword. So the book's called Epic Business. You can get it on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Target. I think it's at Walmart now, but it's on Audible. And it's, by the way, it's weird having a professional actor read your words.
You didn't do your own audio.
No. I had a professional. Again, I'm not good at that, so I hired an expert. So, and then, again, I'm an outlier. So, like, my company has a website, but on LinkedIn, I have about 22,000 followers there. So, Justin Breen on LinkedIn, I use it as a commercial for other people. So, follow me on LinkedIn, Justin Breen.
Amazing. Well, you truly are epic business, and the synergy of entrepreneurship, service, and your expertise with PR. I am firsthand experience of your genius and your ability to connect deeply and really create value for someone instantaneously on the first time you connect with them. So what would you say to our viewer as just the big takeaway, number one skill or asset or action step that you would give the person who wants to establish that authority brand for themselves?
Write a book and do it the right way.
Boom. So good. The reason why we all do it is because it works.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm a big believer in books. I just published my 26th book, and books are always, thank you. it's always the way to make the greatest impact and build the best relationship with the people who you're meant to serve.
That's right. It's the best investment you will ever make, ever.
Love it. Well, I love your attitude of giving and connecting, and you have been so generous with your time, your knowledge in this interview. And I would love to continue to bring you back and keep in touch with you about all that you're up to.
Oh, that would be awesome, for sure. I would love to do that, and I'll keep sending you great intros for sure.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Justin. Well, it was so much fun having you on the show, and thank you for being here.
Have a great rest of your week.
Yes. Well, thank you for watching. This has been another amazing episode of Star Authority TV. I never know what's on the other side of these interviews, but this has been a perfect example of going deep into attracting an audience, building your authority so that your message makes the greatest impact. Now is your time to step into the spotlight. The world needs your gifts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.